Hey everybody at the Les Paul forum or wherever it is that you're watching this video. This is my first try at like a video online guitar lesson. My friend Charlie Daughtry asked me to do this for the Les Paul forum lesson series, which is a huge honor that anybody thinks that my guitar playing is worth learning from, especially when the people that have done those Les Paul forum lessons before are such incredible players. So hopefully I have something to add. But I'm happy to give back to the Les Paul forum community because they've given me quite a bit of knowledge and support over the years. Great people there. So I hope that you get something out of this video. When I was asked to do it, I kind of had no idea what to teach because I definitely have similar influences to probably most of the people that are watching this video and a lot of the people on the Les Paul forum. And you know, my guitar playing is definitely still firmly rooted in like the blues, jazz, and rock world. I just kind of get there in a different way. And what I mean by that is I play a lot of slide, which is what this video is going to be about. And I play in open E tuning like most of the time. I used to not. I used to play in standard tuning all the time, but I kind of liked the challenge. And about a year and a half ago, I just switched to playing in open E like almost all the time. And it kind of screws your world up and you know, messes up all the shapes that I relied on in the past and made me just think a little bit differently, which also brings me to kind of the point of this video and why I ended up choosing this melodic slide concept to teach. I just finished up recording my first full-length album. It's called Wooden, and it'll be out January 13th. And it's more of like an Americana folk rock kind of thing, more concise songs, more lyric based, and not as much room for these kind of like just ripping blues slide solos. So I really had to think hard about playing melodically and playing to the song and playing, hitting chord tones and stuff in the short solos that are on the album. And it was an interesting challenge and something that I think, a lot of people when they play slide don't really consider, the possibilities of playing a little bit more melodically. I think there's two main ways that a lot of people that like aren't slide players primarily play, and that's kind of blues-based stuff, which is great, and that's how I learned how to play slide, or like more ambient textural kind of slide playing, like David Gilmour or something, which is also really cool. But I kind of use slide now less of an effect to get those sounds, and more as just a tool to expand what the guitar itself can do, and to emulate singers and harp players and sarod players, sitar players, horn players. It's a great tool, I think, for emulating things. So I want to talk about kind of just being able to play slide over more things than you might be used to. So what I'm talking about, though, about kind of blues-based slide that I think probably most people watching this are familiar with, and is the way that I learned how to play slide and was introduced to slide playing. It's kind of like the Duane Allman, Elmore James sort of thing, and this is what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that's cool stuff, and probably what most people think of when they hear like electric slide guitar, and it's very like harp-based, bluesy, cool sounding stuff, and I definitely do a lot of that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, but you can't play that sort of stuff over everything, especially like very pretty major sounding things, or even like very like minor sounding things. I'm going to kind of focus more on the major aspect of this video just to kind of keep the time reasonable. And I'm not going to actually teach you how to play slide physically, because that's just a whole nother concept and something that I don't really feel equipped to teach, because I'm not really sure what I do. I can tell you that I'm definitely fretting notes with the slide, like I'm pushing down. So if you're trying to do this thing where you're like, high action and you can't touch anything, like any frets or anything, you're going to have a hard time playing some of the licks that I'm going to show you. It's really all about muting in the right hand, and that's just something that I never learned. It's just from like practice and years of sounding like crap. I eventually adapted to figure out what I was doing, sort of. So feel free to watch my right hand, but I'm not going to talk about what it is exactly that I'm doing because I just don't really know. So that blues stuff is cool, and it's based around this box that's like 2 frets behind the root fret that you're playing on. And you know, if you're an open E, just a 1-finger bar on any fret is a major chord. So I'm going to play most of this video in the key of C major. So you're on the 8th fret. I just like that because it's a good place on the fretboard. You're not so close to the nut that you're fretting out, and you're not so far up high that it's like tiny little increments between notes that's hard to navigate with a slide. So C, you have 3 octaves of your root on just that 1 fret, that 8th fret. You have your low octave on the low E, C, and then you have your middle E, formerly your D string, and you have another octave there, and then your high E string. And then you have your 3rd on the G sharp string, formerly the G string. So you have some really important notes all right in a row there, and they're really good things to kind of anchor or like base your licks off of. So I'm going to play a little bit of this like major style that I'm talking about, like this more melodic major style of slide playing, and you can kind of get a feel for what I mean by some of these licks. So you can hear it still has that kind of blues-based sound, but is just a little bit more within the kind of the I don't want to say confines, but within the world of a much more major sound, and that can apply with the addition of those blues licks to a lot more music than just like blues-based slide playing, which kind of definitely has, you know, its place, but its place is not in a lot of songs. So I'm not gonna, you know, I encourage you to explore and figure this out yourself. This is what I did, and the best way to figure out you know, some of these licks is just trial and error and figuring out, you know, where good notes are close together with a slide and that kind of thing, and just, you know, cool licks on one string. But I'll give you some kind of good things to start with and to experiment with. The major box, even though I don't like to think of it as a box, and you know, the real reason I started playing in open E is because it kind of messes up your whole world of shapes and makes you think more in melodies and notes. But if you do really, you know, if you want to think of it as kind of a box, it's instead of being 2 frets below your root, it's like the 2 frets above, and it's not quite as symmetrical as the blues box, I guess. Your 4th is in the middle, but you can, you know, you can use those notes, and that there's a lot of good slide stuff in there. So one of those licks being this. But that first one, is a very, I think, calming lick. It's great to throw in between lyrics. It's great to end a solo with. It's great to kind of like, if you're like doing a song that has a form that goes around a couple times, that's a cool way to kind of bring it back into the top of the form. And it starts on the 1 and ends on the 1. So you're starting on the high E octave of the C. And then you're going to the 6, which is the A, on the B string, sliding down to the G. And then you're going to grab right the string, you know, above that G. You're going to hit the 3rd on the G sharp string, 8th fret. So you're just jumping between 2 strings on the 8th fret that are right there, so it's easy. And then you're going to do a little slide. You can do it slow. You can use it in a lot of different things. So the only real kind of difficult part about that might just be the jump from that root to the 6th, you know, because you're jumping strings and frets. So that's a muting thing again. But the thing that I want to stress about this riff is when you're hitting that 3rd and then sliding down to the 1, you're not going right to the 2nd. You're not going. You're just doing. And there's no note there that you're really like trying to hit. You're just falling down. It's kind of like a domino sounding lick. I think everything sort of falls into each other. You're just falling until it feels right to get to the one, and that's really something that you just need to play slide a lot to figure out. You know, slide is a lot about these in-between notes, and it's different from playing guitar because, you know, with guitar we can bend strings, but generally we work in half steps, and Western music in general, you know, we have these frets that limit us. With a slide, frets are no longer part of the equation. You have microtones, and that's really a big part of slide playing, is just kind of hearing it and hearing where these in-between notes work nicely. And I think the best way to practice like hearing those tones is by recording yourself playing slide. And it's not even so much of an intonation thing, but just hearing where you can slide a little bit further, where you can slide a little bit less. But yeah, that just a little bit of a slide just gives it a really nice, relaxed kind of sound. Another lick that's a great kind of like point to start embellishing on is just starting on the third. So, and then giving it a little push up to the fourth. Just a little wiggle, just a, and then that same kind of half slide down to the one. And those little pushes, I think, are really cool to kind of give them a more like Eastern classical sound, like a sarod. Just doing these little. So that's one that's really easy. There's not really a whole lot of like muting complications with that. You can connect them too. And I really encourage you to play these licks and kind of get a little lost and play wrong notes, because that's the best way to figure out what's right is what's wrong. And you know, you might happen upon something that is really cool, and I can show you, you know, hundreds of licks, but it's not going to really matter, because again, I think it's important to not live by licks and live by shapes and stuff, and just kind of to explore and use, you know, maybe not even the most efficient way to play something, but you know, like an E on your open E string is going to sound different than this E, you know. There's a slight difference in tonality, you know, even if you're in the same octave, the same note. So I definitely encourage you, especially with the slide, just to find, you know, what's comfortable and work around the neck. You know, another lick I really like is going from the 5th to the 1 on the B to E, so you're like both on the 8th fret, still in C. These all kind of end with that lick, by the way. I think that's just a good way to wrap things up, but you don't need to always do that. This is a good kind of intonation practice. So you're going 5, 1, 2, 3, 1. So you're going. You climb up. You know, you just skip one fret each time. And then back to the 6th, and then up to the 7th. So again, that's. And you can again mess around with that, keep going up, you know. And again, you know, it's really just about experimenting, and a lot of those notes are close together, right up above the fret. So another thing that is really great for for slide playing and sounding kind of vocal and expressive with it is playing a lot of notes on one string and kind of riffing like a vocalist with minimal attack between each note on one string. So a good way to practice that is to put the slide aside for a little bit and just go on one string. I'm going to do this now in E just because it's easy to keep a droning E and then play on the middle E string. Just mess around with that. It's really fun and easy to do kind of mindlessly. Just find some melodies on one string like this. And then you can apply that with the slide on any string, and the more you do that, the more you'll kind of hear these licks that work out really nicely, and they'll kind of jump out at you even if you're not really paying attention. You're just kind of noodling around. If you play something good, I think you notice it. You know, I think it'll jump out at you. So that's a really useful thing to do, and I would try to do it as much as possible. Whatever finger you play slide with, you know, I use my ring finger. You know, it's easy to kind of slide around with that and just practice that motion. But you know, a lot of very like vocal slide licks are on one string. I think it helps to get kind of a very vocal sound because you can do it with not a whole lot of attack all the way. And kind of the same concepts apply to minor. I'm not going to really have time to go into minor thing. It's a little bit more difficult. Minor's more spread out. But you know, just explore, get lost. That's the most fun part of playing guitar, I think, is just kind of throwing caution to the wind and just playing and finding new things. And you know, there's limitless things that you can do on this instrument, and you know, playing slide is just one of the ways to explore a different realm on the instrument. Tuning to a different tuning is another way to do it. You know, whatever floats your boat. Again, you know, this is all an open E, but if you followed this long, then obviously you're getting something out of it. But you know, these concepts and the ideas apply to standard tuning as well. Just, you know, where the licks are on the fretboard isn't quite the same. I hope I did okay and you got something out of this. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or like go to my website, and you know, you can contact me through there or whatever social media it is that you might follow me on. Yeah, I really appreciate you watching. I hope I did something right here, hopefully. Maybe I'll do a follow-up or something if there's something that is like burning, you know, a burning question that everybody has that I didn't cover. Because like I said, this is my first time doing this. I'm not totally sure how to make it good, but I hope you enjoyed it. And again, thank you to Charlie and the Les Paul Forum for having me do this video for you. It's quite an honor on my behalf to try and teach you guys something. And yeah, let me know what you think, and if you need any help with any of this stuff, and I'll be glad to respond. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.